My parents turned my siblings into spies against each other. When I saw what they did to my little sister, I took her and ran. 6 months later, they got arrested trying to foster more kids. Parents only rewarded us for snitching on siblings. I became family scapegoat protecting others. When I left for college, they targeted my twin sister. Rescued her, hid from authorities, got all siblings into protective custody. Parents lost rights, later arrested trying to foster more kids. But here's what still haunts me. My brother secretly recorded our parents planning to frame me as mentally unstable. What's on those recordings made even the judge sick. And we discovered they'd been doing this to other families for years. We weren't their first victims. I know the title sounds insane, but bear with me. This is probably going to be long, and honestly, I'm still processing a lot of this, even though it happened a few years ago. I need to start by explaining how fucked up my childhood was, because without that context, the rest won't make sense. But I promise you, by the end of this story, you'll understand why my parents getting arrested was just the beginning, not the end. # the setup. Growing up in surveillance hell, I'm the middle child of 4 siblings. We had my older brother Nate, 2 years older, me and twin sisters Kayla and Cynthia, 6 years younger. From the outside, we probably looked like a normal family. My parents were great at putting on the perfect parent act in public. But behind closed doors? Jesus Christ. See, my parents had this twisted system. They only rewarded us for one thing: telling on each other. Not good grades, not being helpful, not being kind. Just snitching. And the rewards were huge. If you tattled on a sibling, you'd get praised, special treatment, sometimes even money or gifts. But if you got caught doing something wrong, or if someone snitched on you, that's when the real punishment came out. I remember being 4 years old, and accidentally spilling cranberry juice on our beige carpet. I immediately tried to clean it up with my shirt, but my older brother Nate was already running downstairs. Neil just spilled juice all over the floor. He's so clumsy. I heard my dad walk to the drawer. I knew what was coming. The black leather belt. I just laid face down on my bed, pillow in my mouth to muffle the screams, and counted. 1, 2, 3. And on the right, but they said, "You ought to worry you dare." No dinner that night. Meanwhile, downstairs, I could hear my parents praising Nate like he'd just won the Nobel Prize. "You're so mature, my handsome boy. I'm so proud of you." That was the moment I learned the rules of our house. And those were the only rules that mattered. By the time the twins were born, this system was fully established. But here's the thing, I couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to snitch on my siblings. Maybe I was just wired differently, or maybe getting beaten so much so young broke something in me. But I'd rather take the punishment myself than see them go through it. So I became the family scapegoat. If I caught my siblings doing something wrong, I'd warn them, or even take the blame myself. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes they felt safer around me because of it. But they never returned the favor. Not once. Because there was something they loved more than me: our parents' approval. The punishments escalated as I got older. Snoring too loud and bothering a sibling? No mattress for a week. Using Nate's cologne by accident? No showers for 3 days. Everything became my fault, and everyone, including my siblings, started seeing me as the troublemaker. By the time I turned 18, I had a 1 GPA because I was too busy surviving to focus on school. I had no concept of what healthy family relationships looked like. When I saw loving families on TV, I'd get angry because I thought it was all fake. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty: I had to get out. When it was time for college, I had no money and no support. I paid a classmate named Thomas to let me sleep on his dorm room floor. He probably saved my life without knowing it. The first time his parents came to visit for Thanksgiving, I had a full panic attack. I was convinced they were going to hurt me for some imagined slight. When they knocked on the door twice instead of once, I opened it and immediately closed my eyes, bracing for a beating. Instead, they thanked me for opening the door quickly. His mom even hugged me. I spent the entire visit walking on eggshells, being completely silent, ready to clean up anything that might set them off. When they left, I was so confused by their kindness that I convinced myself it was all an act. It took me a while to realize normal parents don't beat their children for minor mistakes. Thomas's reaction when I told him about my childhood confirmed it. The horror in his eyes told me everything I needed to know about how abnormal my upbringing was. But my peace didn't last long. The call that changed everything. It was my second semester when I got the call. I almost didn't answer because it was from an unknown number. But something made me pick up. It was my twin sister, Kayla. She was whispering so quietly, I could barely hear her. "Please help me." "I'm sorry," she said, and hung up. My heart fucking shattered. I knew exactly what was happening. With me gone, they needed a new punching bag. And they'd chosen Kayla. I drove to the house the next day to get her. When we got back to Thomas's dorm, she showed me her stomach. I almost threw up. The bruises were everywhere, fresh ones on top of healing ones. It was clear this had been going on for a while. She kept apologizing over and over, and I kept telling her it wasn't her fault. Because it wasn't. None of it was ever our fault. Hash hash, going underground. Thomas was amazing about the whole situation. He helped me set up a small space for Kayla behind his desk where she wouldn't be seen during room checks. We took turns smuggling food from the cafeteria. For the first time in her life, Kayla slept through the night without fear. But it didn't last. My parents started calling immediately. First, they tried the Concerned Parent Act. Neil, honey, have you seen Kayla? We're so worried about her. When I didn't respond, the messages got progressively more threatening. You better bring her back right now, or there will be consequences. I blocked their numbers. Then my brother Mason started calling with the same manipulative bullshit. Hey, bro, Mom and Dad are really worried. Just let us know she's okay. No one's mad at you. I almost believed. Almost. But I'd spent my whole life watching Mason say whatever our parents wanted him to say. Kayla was terrified they'd find her. She jumped at every noise, refused to go outside, slept curled up in a ball like she was protecting herself even in her dreams. What if they call the police? She asked one night. What if they say you kidnapped me? Legally, she was still a minor. I could get in serious trouble. But sending her back wasn't an option. I'd seen what they did to her. We'll figure it out, I promised, though I had no idea how. Thomas's Ray started getting suspicious about having an extra person in the room. We needed to find somewhere else to stay. We had almost no money. I was working part-time at the campus coffee shop, but my paycheck barely covered food for both of us. Finally, I got lucky. Melissa from my psychology class lived off-campus with roommates and had a small storage room they weren't using. It wasn't much, just enough space for a twin mattress and a small dresser, but it was perfect. Her roommates were surprisingly cool about the whole thing. They didn't ask too many questions when I explained Kayla was escaping a bad situation. Things were going okay for about a week. I picked up extra shifts. Kayla started doing homework for the girls for a little cash. We were surviving. Then Mason showed up at my work. I was in the middle of my shift when I looked up and saw him standing at the counter. My stomach dropped. Hey, little brother, he said casually. Can we talk? My manager let me take a break. I led Mason to a corner table. What do you want? I didn't bother hiding my hostility. Mason sighed dramatically. Look, I know you're mad, but this thing with Kayla has gone too far. Mom and Dad are freaking out. Good. They should be freaking out. Do you have any idea what they did to her after I left? He shifted uncomfortably. They said she was acting out, breaking rules. You know how she can be. I saw the bruises, Mason. All over her body. They beat her because she didn't snitch on Cynthia for something. That's fucked up, and you know it. They're our parents, he said, lowering his voice. They're strict, yeah, but they love us. I almost laughed. Is that what you tell yourself to sleep at night? That beating kids black and blue is love? Mason's expression hardened. You always were the dramatic one, always playing the victim. She's a minor, Neil. Neil. This is kidnapping. Mom and Dad could press charges. There it was, the threat I'd been waiting for. I leaned forward, keeping my voice steady despite my racing heart. Tell them to go ahead. I'll show the police Kayla's bruises. I'll tell them everything. Is that what they want? For everyone to know what they've been doing to us? Mason's confident facade cracked slightly. They know where you work now, he said quietly. They'll find her eventually. You can't hide her forever. I pulled my arm away. Watch me. As soon as my shift ended, I raced to Melissa's apartment to warn Kayla. When I got there, I found her sitting on the couch with Cynthia. My other twin sister looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. Hi, Neil. I froze. What are you doing here? This couldn't be a coincidence. Mason shows up at my work, and suddenly Cynthia appears at the apartment. How did you find this place? I asked Cynthia. She looked down at her hands. I followed you one day after your class. I just wanted to make sure Kayla was okay. Something felt off. I pulled Kayla into her tiny bedroom. I think this is a setup, I told Kayla. Mason came to see me today. Now Cynthia shows up, they're working together. Kayla's eyes widened with fear. What do we do? Pack your stuff. We need to leave now. While Kayla quickly threw her belongings into a backpack, I went back to confront Cynthia. Who are you texting? I asked, sitting across from her. Just a friend, she said too quickly. Then her phone buzzed with a new text, and I caught a glimpse of the screen. It was from our mom. Is she coming? Dad's waiting in the car. My blood ran cold. They were outside. You need to leave, I told Cynthia, standing up. Now. As soon as she left, I texted Melissa to warn her not to come home yet. Then I grabbed Kayla and we slipped out the back door just as I spotted my dad's car pulling up to the front entrance. We spent that night in a cheap motel paid for with the last of my paycheck. Kayla cried herself to sleep while I sat by the window, watching for any sign of my parents. The next morning, while I was researching our options online, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of Kayla and me entering the motel the night before. Underneath, we know where you are. Bring her home or we call the police. I showed Kayla the message. Her face went pale. They're going to take me back, she whispered. No, they're not. I promised, though I had no idea how to keep that promise. We checked out immediately and caught a bus back toward campus. When we got there, I noticed a campus security officer talking to someone who looked suspiciously like my mother near Thomas's dorm entrance. We ended up spending the night in a 24-hour laundromat, taking turns sleeping on the hard plastic chairs. The next day, Cynthia reached out wanting to meet. Against my better judgment, we agreed to meet at a coffee shop on campus. When we arrived, Cynthia was already there, looking tired with dark circles under her eyes. "I'm sorry about yesterday," she said as we sat across from her. "They made me do it. They said if I didn't help find Kayla, they'd start treating me like they treated you." I wanted to be angry, but I understood her fear all too well. Cynthia reached into her backpack and pulled out an envelope. Inside was $300 in cash. "It's my birthday money," she explained. "I want you to have it. To help Kayla. After years of betrayal from my siblings, this small act of kindness felt foreign." "There's something else," Cynthia continued, lowering her voice. "They're going to report Kayla as a runaway tomorrow. They've already talked to the police." As we were leaving the coffee shop, my phone buzzed with a campus alert email. The subject line made my stomach drop. "Safety notice. Missing student." The email described Kayla as a missing minor who might be in the company of her brother, described as potentially in need of intervention. "They're turning the whole campus against us," I said, showing them the email. We needed a new plan, and fast. With Kayla's face plastered all over campus, hiding was going to be nearly impossible. I remembered my psychology professor, Dr. Walter Barnes. He'd mentioned working with Child Protective Services before becoming a professor. Maybe he could help. Dr. Barnes agreed to meet us immediately. Over the next hour, we told him everything. The years of abuse, the system of rewarding children for snitching on each other, the beatings, the psychological torture. Kayla showed him the photos of her bruises. Cynthia confirmed our story. Dr. Barnes listened without interrupting, his expression growing increasingly troubled. "What you're describing is serious child abuse," he said. "The first step is to file a formal report with CPS about the abuse. That will trigger an investigation." "Will they make Kayla go back home during the investigation?" I asked, dreading the answer. Given the photographic evidence and the severity of the allegations, we might be able to get an emergency placement for her. He looked at Cynthia. "For both of them, potentially. For the first time in days, I felt like we might actually have a way forward." "What about Neil?" Kayla asked. "They're saying he kidnapped me." "That's trickier," Dr. Barnes admitted. "You're an adult, Neil, so you can't be placed in foster care. And technically, you did take a minor without legal authority. So I could go to jail for trying to protect my sister. Not if we handle this right," he said. "The key is to be proactive. We need to file the CPS report immediately, and then you need to present yourself to the authorities voluntarily." Dr. Barnes helped us file the CPS report that afternoon and arranged for a CPS caseworker named Beverly to meet us at the campus police station. Beverly was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She listened to our story, examined Kayla's photos, and took notes. "I'm going to request an emergency removal order for both Kayla and Cynthia," she told us. The campus police were less sympathetic. They took my statement but seemed skeptical, calling it a family dispute rather than abuse. "We'll need to contact your parents," one officer told me. "She's documented injuries," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "There's an active CPS investigation now. You can't just send her back to them." Beverly nodded firmly. "The children will be placed in emergency foster care pending investigation." As we waited, my phone buzzed with a text from Mason. "Mom and Dad know you went to the police. They're on their way. They're furious." Through the window, I saw my parents' car pull up. They stormed in, my father with that familiar look of controlled rage, my mother already putting on her concerned parent act. "I want to see my daughters," I heard my father demand. "They've been missing for days." Through the wall, I could hear my mother playing the distraught parent role. "My son has always been trouble. He's been filling Kayla's head with lies. He's the one who should be investigated." After hours of waiting, Beverly returned with news. "We found a placement for tonight, a temporary foster home that can take both girls." Kayla immediately grabbed my hand. "What about Neil?" "I'm sorry, but he's an adult. The foster system is only for minors." As Beverly prepared to take the girls to their foster placement, an officer came in with news that made my blood run cold. "Your parents want to press charges against Neil for kidnapping. They're talking to the district attorney now." I sat in the interview room for what felt like forever before Dr. Barnes showed up with a lawyer from the university's legal aid clinic named Stephen. "They're pushing hard for kidnapping charges," Stephen told me. "But we have a strong case for the necessity defense. You had reasonable belief your sister was in imminent danger." That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 3:00 a.m., I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "It's Mason. We need to talk." Alone, I almost ignored it, but something made me respond. The next morning, I met Mason at a coffee shop. He looked terrible, hair a mess, same clothes as yesterday, dark circles under his eyes. "I saw the pictures of Kayla," he said after we sat down. "The ones she took, of her injuries. The CPS worker showed them to me. He looked up at me, his eyes red-rimmed. I didn't know it was that bad, Neil. I swear. You knew, I said flatly. Maybe not the details, but you knew what they were capable of. I was a kid too, Neil. I was just trying to survive, same as you. For the first time, I saw genuine remorse in my brother's eyes. Why are you here? I asked, softer this time. They're planning to destroy you. They've already convinced half the family that you're mentally unstable. Mason pulled out his phone. I have proof they're lying. He showed me text messages between him and our parents from the past few days. Messages where they explicitly discussed their plan to discredit me and regain custody of the twins. Messages where my father talked about teaching Kayla a lesson she'll never forget once they got her back. Then he played a voice recording. It was my mother's voice. We just need to convince everyone Neil is crazy. No one will believe him then. We've been laying that groundwork for years anyway. I stared at him in disbelief. Why would you record this? Because I finally realized what they are, he said, looking ashamed, what they made me into. I don't want to be their weapon anymore, Neil. Will you testify? I asked. If it comes to that, he nodded without hesitation. I'll do whatever it takes to keep the twins safe. And to help you. Over the next few days, things moved quickly. The district attorney decided not to pursue kidnapping charges against me after reviewing Mason's evidence. CPS expanded their investigation, interviewing teachers, neighbors, and relatives about our parents' behavior. A week later, Mason called in a panic. They know I gave you the text and recording. Dad tried to hit me, but I left before he could. The next day, we got word that CPS had removed our youngest sister from the house as well. All four of us kids were now safely away from our parents. Our parents didn't go down without a fight. They hired an expensive lawyer who tried to paint me as the family troublemaker who had manipulated my siblings into making false accusations. But they couldn't explain away the photos of Kayla's injuries or Mason's recordings or the consistent testimony from all four of their children. The judge at the dependency hearing was a no-nonsense woman named Judge Emerson, who saw right through their act. When my mother tried her concerned parent routine, crying about how much she missed her children, the judge cut her off. Mrs. Mitchell, I've reviewed the evidence thoroughly. The injuries documented on your daughter's body are not consistent with normal discipline. They are consistent with prolonged, severe physical abuse. My mother's face hardened instantly, her tears disappearing. It was the face we knew from home, cold, angry, calculating. These children have been given everything, she hissed. And this is how they repay us? With lies? The judge raised an eyebrow. I think you've just demonstrated exactly why your children are afraid of you. In the end, the judge terminated their parental rights to all of the minor children. Since Mason and I were adults, we didn't need legal protection, but the judge issued restraining orders preventing our parents from contacting any of us. It should have felt like victory. We were free from them, finally. But I just felt hollow. 18 years of abuse doesn't disappear with one court ruling. The real work came in the months that followed. We all started therapy, individually and as siblings. Kayla and Cynthia stayed in foster care, but I visited them every week. Mason got an apartment near campus and let me crash on his couch until I could afford my own place. Slowly, we started to heal, to learn what normal families were supposed to be like, to unlearn the toxic lessons our parents had taught us. It wasn't easy. We all had setbacks. Kayla still flinched whenever someone raised their voice. Cynthia still apologized constantly for the smallest mistakes. Mason still struggled with guilt over his role in our family dynamic. And I still had nightmares about not being able to protect my siblings. But we were getting better, one day at a time. 6 months after the court ruling, I got a text from Thomas. Dude, you need to see this. He sent a link to a local news article. My parents had moved to a small town, 3 states away. They joined a church, presenting themselves as a loving couple whose children had been stolen by the system. They'd even started the process to become foster parents themselves. But someone had recognized them from a database of parents with terminated rights. The article included their mugshots. They'd been arrested for trying to falsify their backgrounds to get access to vulnerable children. I showed the article to Mason when he came over that evening. He read it silently, then looked up at me. They'll never change, will they? He asked quietly. I shook my head. No. And that's the truth. We'd broken the cycle. We'd escaped. We were building something new together. A real family based on support instead of fear, on protection instead of betrayal. Last weekend, all 4 of us siblings got together at Mason's apartment. We ordered pizza, played board games, and just enjoyed being together without walking on eggshells. At one point, I looked around at my brothers and sisters laughing and arguing over Monopoly, and felt something I hadn't experienced much in my life. Peace. Kayla caught me watching them and came to sit beside me. What are you thinking about? She asked. I put my arm around her shoulders. Just that we're going to be okay. She leaned her head against me. Yeah, we are. It wasn't a perfect ending. We still had a lot of healing to do. But for the first time, I believed we actually had a future worth looking forward to. One where we defined ourselves not by what our parents had done to us, but by how we chose to love and protect each other. For those asking in the comments, yes, we're all still in contact and doing well. Kayla and Cynthia both graduated high school and are in college now. Mason works in social services. Funny how that worked out. Our youngest sister is thriving with her adoptive family. We have family dinners every month, and nobody has to worry about getting in trouble for spilling juice on the carpet. Sometimes, the system works. Sometimes people who are supposed to protect you actually do. And sometimes, the best family you can have is the one you choose to build together after surviving hell. Thanks for reading, Reddit. Hug your siblings if you've got good ones.